Let me start by sharing something with you that I think you need to hear. After 60, your body changes in ways that make certain foods more dangerous than they were when you were younger. And I'm not talking about gaining a few pounds or feeling a bit more tired. I'm talking about how the foods you eat every single day can either protect you from cancer or quietly feed it. Now, I know that might sound frightening, but please stay with me because what I'm about to share with you is going to empower you. You see, I've spent years studying how our bodies work, how they heal, and what they need to stay strong as we age. And one thing I've learned is this: your body was designed with remarkable healing abilities. Even after 60, even after 70 or 80, you still have the power to influence your health through the choices you make at every meal. Let me be very direct with you. About 40% of us will face a cancer diagnosis at some point in our lives. And yes, some of that is genetics. Some of that is simply the wear and tear of living. But here's what gives me hope, and I want this to give you hope too. Up to 40% of all cancers are preventable. That means the food on your plate right now, the choices you make today, they matter more than you might think. You cannot change your genetics, that's true. But you absolutely can influence how those genes behave. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is through what you eat every single day. Now, I want you to understand something very important about cancer. Many cancers are not just genetic diseases. They're metabolic diseases. They're immune function diseases. And the wrong foods, even ones we've been told are normal or healthy, they can quietly create the exact conditions that cancer cells need to grow and multiply in your body. So today I'm going to walk you through the foods that feed cancer, and I'm going to explain why they're especially problematic after 60, when your metabolism has slowed, when your immune system isn't quite as sharp as it used to be, and when your body's ability to repair itself has diminished just a bit. Let me explain how cancer works in simple terms, because once you understand this, everything else will make sense. Cancer starts when just one normal cell becomes abnormal. It's a mutation. And these mutations happen all the time in your body. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, your body is dealing with abnormal cells. But normally your immune system catches these cells and destroys them before they become a problem. That's what a healthy immune system does. But for that mutated cell to survive and spread, it needs several things to fall into place. First, cancer cells need glucose. That's sugar. It's their primary energy source. They feed on it. Second, they need certain hormones to grow, hormones like insulin. Third, cancer cells require inflammation. Inflammation breaks down your body's natural barriers and suppresses your immune system. And your immune system, as I just said, is your first line of defense. And finally, cancer needs a blood supply. It gets this through a process where new blood vessels form to feed these cancer cells, almost like a lifeline delivering nutrients. And here's what troubles me. So many foods in our modern diet directly support every single one of those steps. But the good news, the empowering news, is that we can use this knowledge to our advantage. We can choose to either feed cancer or fight it with every meal. Now let me take you through the foods you need to be most careful with. The first one might surprise you because it's something many of you eat regularly, thinking it's healthy. I'm talking about certain nuts and grains that contain something called aflatoxins. Aflatoxins are toxins produced by molds. They're some of the most potent naturally occurring carcinogens we know of, and we usually encounter them on grains, nuts, and corn. The foods you really need to be careful with are peanuts and tree nuts like almonds, walnuts, and pistachios. Now, please hear me clearly. I am not telling you to avoid nuts. There's nothing inherently wrong with nuts. In fact, they can be quite nutritious, but we have to be careful about where these nuts come from and how they're stored. You see, mold grows in warm, humid conditions. So if you're buying nuts or grains from countries with hot, humid climates, there's a higher risk of mold contamination. And we also have to be careful with things like peanut butter or almond butter, where the nuts might not have been inspected as thoroughly for mold. Let me give you some practical advice. When you buy nuts, look for brands that source their nuts from drier climates. When you open a bag of nuts, inspect them carefully. If you see any that are discolored or shriveled or look odd in any way, throw them out. Don't take the risk. And once you open a package of nuts, try to eat them within a month. Don't let them sit in your pantry for 6 months. Check those expiration dates. Another thing that helps is roasting. Roasting peanuts and pistachios can reduce the aflatoxin content, though it doesn't eliminate it completely. Now, here's something that might concern you. Aflatoxins can also get into your food indirectly through milk and dairy products. Some animals consume feed that contains aflatoxins, usually corn-based feed. And there's a specific type called aflatoxin M1 that gets into animal feed and then gets secreted into milk. So we need to be careful, especially if you're buying milk from small farms where the cows might be fed untested grain, or if you're drinking raw milk or eating dairy products that aren't regulated. I'm not trying to scare you away from these foods. I just want you to be informed and careful. Now let's talk about something you probably already know is problematic: sugar and processed carbohydrates. I know, you've heard this before, but let me explain why this is especially important after 60 and why it matters so much when we're talking about cancer. Foods that are high in sugar or processed carbohydrates are linked to increased cancer risk, particularly breast cancer, colon cancer, and possibly pancreatic cancer. And the reason is simple: cancer cells love sugar. Let me help you visualize this. Imagine your body is made up of trillions of tiny engines. Those engines are your cells. Normally, these engines burn fuel very efficiently. They use oxygen and they get a lot of energy from each bite of food you eat. But cancer cells are different. They're like broken engines that don't work efficiently. They burn through fuel really fast. And their favorite fuel is sugar, or more precisely, glucose. That's the type of sugar your body makes from foods like bread, pasta, candy, and soda. There's actually a scientific name for this. It's called the Warburg effect. Cancer cells choose to burn sugar super quickly, even when there's plenty of oxygen around. They don't care about efficiency. They just want to grow fast. Now here's where it gets worse. When you eat foods that spike your blood sugar, your body releases hormones like insulin. Normally that's fine. Your body needs insulin. But when you eat too much sugar too often, you get excess insulin. And that insulin sends a message to your cells saying, it's time to grow bigger and divide. So you get a double problem. You're feeding your body a food that cancer cells prefer, and you're also increasing the signals in your body that tell cancer cells to grow and divide faster. This is especially true with breast cancer. Some studies show that cancerous breast cells can have 6 times more insulin receptors than healthy cells. 6 times. That means they're 6 times more responsive to insulin signals. And if that wasn't enough, excess sugar leads to chronic inflammation, and inflammation causes DNA damage, which makes it easier for cancers to appear in the first place. Plus, inflammation weakens your immune system. And after 60, your immune system is already not as strong as it was when you were younger. So let me be clear about what this means for you. Cancer cells are sugar hungry, and we can use that to our advantage. We can choose foods that stop feeding cancer and instead prioritize foods that feed the rest of your body while starving those cancer cells. My advice is this: limit sugar as much as you can. The worst offenders are processed carbohydrates and high glycemic foods, things like white bread, white rice, pastries, cookies, candy, and regular soda. Instead, emphasize low glycemic carbohydrates that have high fiber, things like beans, whole grains, vegetables, and berries. These foods don't spike your blood sugar the same way. And if you're someone who drinks regular soda, please, this is the easiest change you can make today. Switch to water, tea, or even diet soda if you must have something sweet. I know there's controversy about artificial sweeteners, and that's a topic for another day. But I can tell you this: regular soda is absolutely feeding cancer cells in your body every single time you drink it. Now let's talk about processed meat and red meat. This is a topic where I want you to listen carefully because the science isn't as black and white as the headlines make it seem. There are many studies showing an association between high intake of processed meats like ham, bacon, sausages and hot dogs, or high intake of red meat like pork, beef and lamb, and certain cancers, especially colorectal cancer. But here's what you need to understand. These are observational studies. They show association, not necessarily causation. Researchers looked at what people ate and tracked who developed cancer. And they noticed that people who ate more processed or red meat were more likely to get colon cancer. But it's hard to know if it was the meat itself or other factors. Did those people also smoke more, exercise less? Were the people who ate less processed meat more health conscious in other ways? Did they have better access to health care? These are questions we have to ask. That said, there are legitimate reasons to be cautious. Many processed meats contain nitrites, which are preservatives used to cure and flavor the meat. When nitrites get into your stomach, the acid turns them into compounds called nitrosamines. And nitrosamines are known carcinogens. They can increase your risk of stomach cancer. Also, how we cook meat matters. When meat is grilled, fried, or barbecued at high temperatures, chemicals called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons can form. Both of these compounds have been shown to damage DNA and promote cancer in animal studies. So what do I recommend? I don't think you need to give up red meat completely, but I wouldn't overdo it either. And I would definitely try to load up on fiber with every meal. Because here's what I think is really happening. When you eat more red meat or processed meat, you're probably eating less of something else. You're probably eating less fiber-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains. And we have numerous studies showing that people with higher dietary fiber intake have a lower risk of several cancers and a 13% reduction in cancer mortality. 13%. That's significant. So enjoy your meat if you want to, but make sure half your plate is filled with vegetables and whole grains. Now I need to talk to you about alcohol. And I know this is a sensitive topic for many people, but I have to be honest with you. There is strong scientific evidence that alcohol causes cancer. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classified alcohol as a Group 1 carcinogen all the way back in 1987. That means it's in the same category as tobacco. Alcohol is linked to cancers of the mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, breast, and colon. Let me explain how alcohol causes cancer. First, your liver metabolizes alcohol into a toxic compound called acetaldehyde. This compound directly damages your DNA and interferes with your body's ability to repair that damage. Second, alcohol causes vitamin deficiencies. It lowers your levels of vitamin B1, which is absolutely critical for healthy energy metabolism. It also impairs your body's ability to absorb folate. And folate deficiency leads to errors in DNA synthesis, which can lead to cancer. And here's something else. Alcohol acts as a solvent. It actually enhances the absorption of other carcinogens into your tissues. So if you drink alcohol and smoke, or if you drink alcohol and eat processed meats with nitrites, you're making the problem even worse. Now, I understand that for many of you, a glass of wine with dinner is something you enjoy. It's part of your routine, part of your social life. I'm not here to judge you. But I do want you to understand the risks so you can make an informed choice. If you do choose to drink, keep it minimal. And please do not believe the outdated idea that a glass of red wine is good for your heart. The research on that has been largely debunked. Any potential benefits are far outweighed by the cancer risk. Let me bring this all together for you now, because I want you to leave here feeling empowered, not overwhelmed. Your body, even after 60, is still remarkably capable of healing itself and protecting itself. But it needs your help. It needs you to stop feeding the processes that allow cancer to grow and start nourishing the processes that keep you healthy. Avoid or limit aflatoxin-containing foods by being careful with your nut and grain sources. Cut back dramatically on sugar and processed carbohydrates. Be moderate with red and processed meats, and always pair them with plenty of fiber. And be very cautious with alcohol. Instead, fill your plate with colorful vegetables, fruits rich in antioxidants, beans, whole grains, and foods that keep your blood sugar stable and your inflammation low. Your immune system is your greatest ally in the fight against cancer. And at 60, 70, 80 years old, you can still strengthen that immune system through the choices you make every single day. I want you to remember this. You are not powerless. Every meal is an opportunity to nourish your body, to support your immune system, and to create an environment where cancer simply cannot thrive. Start today. Start with one change. Maybe it's giving up soda. Maybe it's adding more vegetables to your plate. Maybe it's being more careful about the nuts you buy. Whatever it is, start there, and then add another change next week and another the week after that. Your body will thank you, your future self will thank you, and you will feel the difference in your energy, your clarity, and your overall sense of well-being. Take care of yourself. You deserve to live your later years with vitality, strength, and health. And it all starts with what you choose to put on your plate today.